Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Tom Baker Show. It is great to be back for another episode on PowerTube TV. As always, this show brought to you by TrackTune. You will be seeing and hearing more of them throughout the show, and we have a special show for tonight. This is going to be fun. You have heard and seen Tim Packman a couple different times in season one of the Tom Baker Show on PowerTube TV as a co-host. But this week we thought we would do something different and actually let you get to know him more personally and more about his career and why we brought him into the fold in the first place. So Tim grew up taking in the races at short tracks across Western New York. He started his career inside the sport as a writer and announcer, and eventually got into track management and promotion and a variety of work with race teams at the NASCAR level. He is a published author of 3 books, and now his life's journey has led him into, wait for it, acting roles in films and series alongside some of the best in the business. You never know where life's going to take you. Welcome to the show, Tim, and hopefully your fee's not gone up considerably since you started acting alongside people like Liam Neeson.
No, it's good, man. And, when you're a background actor, I tell people I'm the fuzzy guy in the background, but hopefully the speaking roles are coming, but we'll get into that in a while, but it's been fun. So I appreciate you having me on. Me and my buddy.
Oh, so you haven't had a speaking part yet.
No,
okay.
Me and Paul Stanley want to thank you for having us on tonight. One of my KISS classes here. So no, we're getting that. I mean, I just started doing the.
We're gonna rock and roll all night, man.
And party every day. You got it. So yeah, it's good to be on. Thanks for having me back. And sorry it's such a slow news day that you had to have me on for the whole show, but it's your show, so let's go with it.
Oh, it's far from that, but I just thought it would be fun and appropriate, honestly, now that we've had you on a few times for our audience to get to know a little bit more about you, and because you've had such a fascinating career, really, and in some ways it's mirrored mine, and in other ways, obviously not so much. But I want to start with, because I think you and I both grew up in different but almost connected portions of New York State, and that's where each of our first motorsports impressions were. Mine in the early 70s, around 73, going to the Oswego Speedway, which is in central New York, north of Syracuse. You grew up in the western part of the state, more toward Buffalo, and you started going to tracks like Lancaster, Ransomville, and Perry. But the commonality is that, we both started watching modifieds and late models and super modifieds and all of that. So I'm curious to hear sort of your initial entry into the sport as a fan. How old were you? And talk a little bit about how all that came to be.
So my father raced at Perry,
Okay.
Perry, North Collins. North Collins closed. So he was in the late models. Started out with a B-bomb. Remember the B-bombs?
Yes.
So it was like a prelude to kind of like the modified open wheel.
Yep.
So we had a B-bomb, and I was probably 2 years old. So we're talking 1966, 67. And he has pictures of me by the car. And then my stepfather raced at Holland and Perry. And there was times they competed against each other. My uncle Don Packman was the flagman. So, I mean, that's how I grew up, Fridays and Saturdays, and I think Sundays. Perry ran Sunday. During the summer, we went to the track, and that's how we did it for a while. And then, I was interested in it. I grew up in it, and none of us wanted to sit next to my mom because she would dig her claws into your leg if, like, dad or stepdad spun out. So we're like, nope, we're not doing that. Like we tried not to sit next to her. So mom was like the first sports person who was like, let's watch football together, let's watch hockey together, racing together. So it's kind of funny how, mom was, and then, my father got out of it and got back into it on dirt. So I grew up there. Never really went to Lancaster. We lived 3 miles away from it. Lancaster just wasn't in our our thing because Holland was a NASCAR track, so they wanted to get
Okay.
the NASCAR points. My
Yep.
stepfather did. My dad raced at Perry because my uncle, lived there, and so. And now the funny part is, years later, my cousin Jim Mashak is now the owner of Perry. So we all grew up there. Now he owns the track. So I was just a fan in the stands. And then 1992, I took myself back to college and said, "Hey, I want to be in racing. I want to be a broadcaster, a writer." And my stepbrother Mike Jividan started racing in the street stock division, and from there, that got me a job at Lancaster, and that's where my announcing career started. And that went to Ransomville because the same family owned it, and from there it just went from there.
Okay. So, you said what year was it when you started at Lancaster?
I started Lancaster 30 years ago, 94.
94. Okay. So you were
Yeah,
20s, right? By the time you in your 20s or
yeah.
so, around 30 by the time you
A
started?
late
Yeah.
bloomer, 28.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be
Yeah.
60 in October. So.
Okay. All right. So you're a couple years older than me. So that's an interesting sort of span of time there from going from
Right,
fan to actually kind of participant or worker
right,
inside or whatever you want to call it.
right.
What made you
Yeah,
decide you
there was a
wanted to?
stint in the Navy there. Yeah,
Ah, okay. Okay. Well, that helps explain it.
yeah.
Thank you for your service.
Right.
Appreciate
That's
that.
for space. Yeah, yeah.
Um, so what made you decide on broadcasting though, the journalism side rather than maybe pursuing driving or crew chiefing or anything like that? Just the lack of
Yeah.
mechanical background?
First, yeah. Mechanical knowledge. I have a nat. I mean, I failed Lincoln Logs and Legos as a kid, so I knew. Like I used to do like morning announcements, and my athletic prowess. I tried out for the swim team. They said, "Hey, how'd you like to be the announcer?" Sure. I tried out for the basketball team. They said, "Hey, how'd you like to be the announcer?" I'm like, "Sure." And I quickly realized, Tom, that my future being an athletic person participating wasn't going to happen. When my high school football days ended, they ended. Um, and then, I always had the interest in broadcasting. I always listened to the radio, and people I always liked broadcasting and writing. I was good at it in school. And then, like I said, when I was 28, I said, well, it's time to do something in my life, and I'm going to go to school and, do this. And, I'm going to center on, focus on, motorsports and NASCAR. And that was my goal from the beginning. And, it took a few years, but that's okay. And then I ended up at the NASCAR level full time in 2000.
Now that's you did the deal early on at Lancaster and then Ransomville, Perry. How did you get from there to NASCAR? Because I think that's first of all, before I even get there, let me ask this. The variety of tracks that you worked at and the variety of different divisions that you saw, and back in the time frame when you would have been doing that, there were just so many cars and stars. I mean, the racing was totally different
Mhm.
in that area back then,
Yep.
30 years or so, 25 years than it is now. Talk a little bit about some of the memories of that first part of
Oh,
your career
gosh.
there.
Um, so when I was a kid, the heroes were Art Clark and the Bimmy Blue #7, who, by the way, is the
Okay.
only race car driver in Western New York in the Buffalo Sports Hall of Fame. One in all the
Wow.
whole thing. So he was that, and Dick Flag were the guys, and Richie Roble, and it was just all these guys as a kid. Evil One Ronnie Williams, who I was scared to death as a kid, but as I got older and got to know him, he was a cream puff. But it was funny. So then these guys, then when I started announcing, well, back up. My first job ever, the first time I got a paycheck was cooking in the concession stand at Lancaster Speedway. I did that
There
for a
you go.
summer, and then I went, yeah. So there I was flipping burgers and all that, and I went to work at an amusement park every summer. So that kind of like took that over, and the racing thing just kind of got shelved because nobody in our family was really in it anymore. So that was that.
Ah,
But when I
okay.
started I went south for a while and worked for an insurance company that covered motorsports, fairs, festivals, concerts, and I went to the PRI show one time, and we're standing at the bar, and Mike Joy's standing behind me, and I said, I'm going to take a shot here. This is going one of two ways. He's going to say yes, get my ass handed to me. So I turned around, I tapped him on the shoulder, introduced myself, and told him what I wanted to do. He goes, really? He goes, what's your experience? So I told him, he goes, okay. He goes, do you have a card? I says, yes. And I gave him my card for the insurance company. And a week and a half later, he called me and said, hey, can you come to Daytona? And I was a pit reporter's assistant, so I wrote down, what I was hearing on the radio and gave it to Ralph Shaheen and Dick Berggren. And so that was kind of where I met a lot of people that way. Yeah, so there's a little – I keep forget that part sometimes. So that's how it went, and then I just kept pursuing it. And then I interviewed for NASCAR.com and the guy Bray Carey. I'm in his office, and I looked up, and I go, oh, hey, there's a Legends car with West Virginia University. I said, oh, my sister went there. I go, whose car is that? He goes, mine. I said, I remember doing the Legends shootout, announcing your races, blah, blah, blah. We started talking, and he's the one that people forget. He negotiated the very first major television contract for NASCAR. Oh, wow. Like so when I met him, like when I walked out, they turned his assistant and said, I want this kid, I want this guy, my resumes all over the place, blah, blah, blah. And then they called and said, hey, we have an opening at NASCAR.com. Tom, all I did then was I did program writing and I did a column for Gator Racing News. And for some reason, I got the job. I came down in 2000. I got married, which that didn't last, but I got married. And then 2 weeks later, I moved down here and I started writing for NASCAR.com. And I went in there wide-eyed, bushy-tailed, clueless. But it turned out, I ended up winning a bunch of writing awards and solidified myself in the sport, getting to know a lot of people. So, yeah.
That's incredible. And it just shows, I mean, even for somebody who's not, we always think about drivers, crew chiefs, chassis people, more of the, okay, there's also that sort of transition and migration for writers and media as well. If that's what you're good at, there's a step ladder and you managed to, and I would think that back then, that was when you went to Daytona, at least, and we're working the gig there, that Mike got you to. That would not, it wasn't really so much yet digital, was it? I mean, there was some, but not nearly with all the social platforms, everything like it is now. Still a lot more old school.
Yeah. Yeah, they were still using typewriters in the media room back then. They still had the press kits. Remember the press kits with the folders? Yep. And that's they handed them to you with a paper, and you take it out, and they read it all. So I would take a bunch of those back to my room, and for Daytona, I'd read them all and get all the information I could, as background for anything that, would have happened with a driver. But a lot of it was just writing it down and handing it to Ralph or Dick Berggren. And, we used to joke, I used to make him look good on the air, not knowing one day I would, need to do that for myself. But, yeah, that's kind of where my introduction was. And, I remember standing on pit road for the first Twin 125, and they did a pit stop, and they came in, and it was Dale Earnhardt of all people. And I was like, what the hell was that? And that's when they're doing, 18, 20-second pit stops. I go, what just happened? Like, boom, and that was it. Yeah. And it was like, it was, I remember so fast, so incredible.
And I think the first time you experience something like that, too, in your mind, it gets magnified, because it's the first time you've seen it. So now you would see the same thing at 13 seconds or whatever, 12 seconds, and still magnified, but more normal, right? Like it just seems like more routine. Fascinating the first time, and two of the nicest guys in the sport, Ralph and Dick Berggren as well. So that two great contacts.
Dick Berggren, he's my hero.
Uncle
Berggren,
he's a lot of people's hero.
I learned a lot from him by watching.
One of the greatest thrills of my motorsports career has been the article that I got published in Speedway Illustrated, because I know that Dick Berggren had a hand in editing that piece, so it had to pass his standard to be published there. So, incredible. Okay. We're going to step aside. When we come back, we're going to delve more into the NASCAR side of Tim's work and continue to talk through his career. Fascinating story. Stick around for the plot twist after this.
Attention track and series owners. Elevate your fan experience with the TrackTune app. TrackTune works with your PA system, Fans and teams at the track can hear the announcers through their phones, ensuring everyone hears race calls, sponsor plugs, and more during race nights. It's simple to set up, affordable, and free for fans to download and enjoy. Visit tracktune.live for all the details and join tracks nationwide on the app today.
For race fans across the United States, getinthestands.com is the place to find racetracks where you live and where you're traveling. Just go to getinthestands.com and enter your location. You'll see the tracks within 100 miles of that point, either as a list or on a map. Getinthestands.com is 100% free to use and mobile friendly. So whether you're on a computer, a tablet, or on your phone, there's no need to download an app. To find racetracks across the United States, open your web browser and head to getinthestands.com. Getinthestands.com, your racetrack directory.
Welcome back to the Tom Baker Show. This segment, as always, being brought to you by Ultimate QM. If you want to get your son or daughter into motorsports quarter midgets, might be a great way to do it. They've got racing from local to regional to national series and even the new NASCAR Youth Series that takes the quarter midgets to a number of different NASCAR tracks where they race on NASCAR weekends. Whole lot of fun and great experience for the drivers. Ultimate QM, the hottest chassis on the quarter midget scene right now, made right here in Mooresville, North Carolina, family-owned business. It's a one-stop shop, too. They will sell you the car. They will sell you the parts. They will teach you how to set it up and go fast and coach your driver as well. It is a tremendous company. I've known them for a long time. Ultimate QM. Winners win with Ultimate QM. Speaking of winners, we've got Tim Packman on the show again tonight with us. And this time, we're putting him in the guest role for a little while. We'll get him back to co-host at the end of the show. But talking about his background a little bit, and we talked in the first segment about his entry into racing, which was at the short track level as media, you might say. But then we got him down here, and he's now working at this point in our conversation for NASCAR.com as a writer. And that must have been kind of a whirlwind experience for you, Tim, because Mike Joy gives you the opportunity to come and sort of assist on pit road for a broadcast at Daytona. Yep. And then next thing you know, you're actually writing for NASCAR.com, which is a whole other can of worms.
Yeah, the first article I ever wrote, I remember, was about Todd Bodine's car called Hillbilly, and it was like the first thing I ever had published, and I was like laughing because it was like, that's my first article about a car named Hillbilly. But from there, the toughest part is just building the trust of drivers, and like I got to know some crew members first, and then they kind of validated me, and I got to know drivers, and I got to know Bobby Allison, which led to one of the books, and a lifetime friendship for the last 25 years now. But it was just people you saw on TV, that whole thing, and then you're like, next thing you know, you're sitting there interviewing them, you're talking with them. And my thing was, there was some writers back then in the day, they just wanted to beat up on NASCAR and beat up on everything. And I'm like, why are you here? Like, these fans, they don't give a darn about this stuff. They want to hear about what's going on with their drivers, their team. And my thing, like, I like to write about the back of the garage, guys that, maybe didn't get the recognition, things going on with their team, and the crew guys, the untold story. And that was one of the things I really started priding myself on, because they'd open up to you more because no one else would talk to them or come to talk to them. So I did. And I just, like the underdogs, I kind of identified with them. So we do too. Started covering those guys, and that kind of built me, towards the front of the garage, and guys going, okay, this guy's okay. So, Jimmy Johnson, he was still in Xfinity when I met him. We used to go to a place called Rockin' and Racing, and John Darby was in there, and, crew chiefs, NASCAR officials, drivers. But the big thing was, I never talked about what went on there.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like whatever happened to those walls stayed.
Yeah. Right. Well, the way it should be. Off the record was really off the record. Now off the record becomes on the record, so we can use it for clickbait to get likes and shares.
Real quick story. I was at a party at Jimmy Johnson's house. So anybody's there. I got to know his family really well. Well, Jeff Gordon's there. He's wearing a Ricky Hendrick hat backwards. And he comes up to me and he goes, "Hey, I know you're part of the media, but you don't really talk about what goes on here." I go, "I'm sorry, who are you?" And I kind of winked and he goes, "Good answer." And he walked away. That was my way of saying, I'm here for the fun, not the clicks or whatever. But
Right.
and that was a big thing to me to be accepted in that circle. They knew if I was there, it was okay. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah. Well, integrity was key back then.
Right.
Now, how did we
Well, that
get
and
from?
you got to walk back in the garage.
Oh, right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. For sure. For sure. How did you get from there to MRN? Because it sounds like you eventually migrated over there as news director, pit reporter, that kind of thing.
Yep.
This is all part of your career I didn't even know about. Talk about that.
So so from NASCAR.com, I went to Dale Earnhardt Incorporated.
Oh,
One of
okay.
my friends, Warren Brosell. Yeah, Warren Brosell was him and I got to be friends when I came years ago. We met up and we've been friends for 27 years now. But he was working at DEI and he goes, "Hey, they posted a job for someone to write for the website." I go, "You don't have a website?" He goes, "Yeah." So I threw my name in there and some writing samples and they called me and we interviewed and they said, "Yeah, we're not gonna do anything with it for a while." And they sat on it and then Christmas Eve, I get a call from the CFO at the time. He's like, "Hey, we'd like to offer you the position." And he goes, "What will it take?" And so I said, "Well, we talked about numbers before." And he came back to that same number, and I went like that. And so I helped create the website, Dale Earnhardt Incorporated. They never had one, Tom, because, quote, Dale Earnhardt really didn't think the internet was going to take off.
Well, him and a lot of other people.
So, yeah. So 2 years after his passing, we started the website, and I was part of that. And I was there for 4 years, and great times there. Dale Jr., the Budweiser days, Michael Waltrip, Daytona 500, Steve Park, John Andretti, then Paul Menard came in, and then Mark Truex. I was his first PR person, and so he won the 2 championships. So that was cool to be part of that. And then along the way, I got to know MRN. I said, "Hey, I used to be an announcer." And so they tried me out for a few times, and that kind of was building up. And when Dale Jr. pretty much said, "Hey, if you got someplace to go, go, because I'm blankety blank out of here soon," I called up MRN. I said, "Hey, is that offer still good for a full-time position?" And David Hyde says, "Yeah, why?" And I told him, he goes, "Okay, that's good." So they made me the news director, but I also did pit reporting and the post-race show on Sirius after the Cup races. So, yeah, that was good. That was a good time.
That's fun.
Wish
How
I was
long
stuck
did you
with
do
that.
that?
We'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
2 years.
How long did you do that? 2
Yeah.
years? Okay.
2 years
All
I was
right.
there, and I never should have left there. Never. I should have stayed there. It's one of my biggest regrets in my career.
Yeah, we all have those. And that's, MRN is still, obviously there's MRN and PRN, but it's I still love the radio side and I still love what those guys do because the way that they call a race makes you sort of imagine what you're seeing rather than, watching it on TV. They do a great job with it.
All the stuff I've done since then, they called tomorrow and said, "Hey, can you fill in for a pit reporting?" I said, "Yeah, I can do it. I just feel I could step back in and probably better at it now than I was before." Like you.
Yeah,
time,
sure. Yeah, experience counts, right? Exactly. Yep, you got to get reps. Well, so why did you leave there? I know what the next step is on your bio, but why did you leave there, and how did that all happen?
Let me say, a team no longer in existence approached me about coming to work for them, and I thought it would have been a really good deal. And 6 weeks into it, I was like, I should have stuck with MRN. And when I called, they're like, "Yeah, we filled your position already." Like, so, yeah, it was just a bad situation. So I'll leave it at that. I don't want to name names.
Sure.
I'm not going to do that.
But then you ended up at RCR.
Yeah, and then I ended up at RCR. Yeah, you caught that. Yeah, that was good. And I became Richard's director of corporate communications, which meant wherever Richard went for like wildlife functions or NRA functions or appearances or media interviews, I handled that for him. Plus, I filled in for the PR rep, so I stayed busy with that. And then that was a good 4 years, 3 years. And then Lancaster Speedway called and said, "Hey, we're making a change in management, and a lot of people they think you might do a good job at this. We'd like to talk to you about it. When you be in town next?" I said, "Well, funny, I'm coming to town this weekend for the big 3-day U.S. Open." So I went and I met Gordon Rieger, the former owner, and we went through it right there at the table. He goes, "What's it going to take?" I wrote down a number, and he pitched a number, and we were very close. So we made a deal, and I said, "Okay, let me think about this." So I came back, and I was thinking about it, and then some things happened, and I said, "You know what? If I don't do this now, I'll never know for the rest of my life." So I told Richard, I'm going to resign before the season ends. I'm going to go to Buffalo, be a track president. He goes, "What?" So he didn't believe me, but I went off and that an oval and had a drag strip, and I was pretty clueless for the first 3 months, and then when I went, and then the program kind of turned it around with the help of a lot of people, and which you never do it yourself, and that resulted in short track promoter of the year in 2016 and 17.
Wow.
And I had a 3-year contract, and then that was up. So when it was up, I opted not to renew it because I felt what I set out to do had gotten done.
All right. So I want to back up a second because I want to know what was Richard Childress like to work with?
Great. He was cantankerous at times, and there's times we had our moments
Aren't we all?
Hey, just leave me alone for a minute, would you? But I learned a lot from that man just by being near him, watching how he interacted. We had a lot of great fun times. We had a lot of good. We'd be flying at 35,000 feet. He'd say, "Hey, what do we got to drink back there?" And we'd be in this plane. I look back and I go, "Oh, I don't know, but I'm pretty sure it has your name on it, sir." He goes, "What flavor?" And I come back and I pull out something reserve, Richard Childress personal select or something like that. And so I learned how to drink red wine with him. Not a lot of it, but just enough to be like, okay. But no, I mean, I saw places and been places and met people I never thought I would have met. And, I have nothing but fond memories with him. And we still stay in touch. He sent me a note the other day. He goes, "Hey, the Rolling Stones are playing the last show in Missouri. I'm sure you're going to be there," because he knows I was a big Kiss fan. And so he used to call me Mr. Rock and Roll when the music stuff came up. But so I have nothing but high respect for the man and a lot of appreciation.
Well, so your career up to that point had been sort of, I started in New York. I went south. I did some things in the South, and then you came full circle back to Lancaster and did the track manager job for a few years. Won a couple of short track promoter awards. So very successful there. Mm-hmm. Did you take that job because you just wanted to see what track management or see if you could do it? I mean, why that decision at that time? You seem to be happy with Richard.
Yeah, I was, but I got pigeonholed into the communications aspect, and I wanted to be in management, and I wanted to, every track we went on the NASCAR circuit, I always walked the concessions. I saw how they were set up. I saw where merchandise was. I watched the flow of the traffic. I watched everything. I watched the operation. I just observed it all. And I'm like, why am I watching this stuff? Why? Well, not knowing that, really deep down, I want to do that. So when I went to do that, I wanted to show there was more than me, than just a communications person, that I could, manage and run things.
Okay. So you wanted to try your hand at that and proved you were very successful. Now, the next thing I have in my, well, of course, it's always a team effort, right? There's no I on the word team. But now, the next thing that I want to talk about is somehow we get from there to 3 books that you've written. Now, I know that didn't happen all at once in the middle of everything, but again, the variety of different roles that you played and have been blessed enough to be able to do is just amazing to me. After Lancaster, did you go into book writing, or what kind of talk about what happened from there?
The first book was Bobby Allison, A Racer's Racer. That was 2003.
Okay.
2011 was Funny Dan the Race Car Man. That came out then, and Petey the Pace Car came out 2 years ago,
wasn't it?
Just as COVID started. Yeah, Petey the Pace Car came out then, but so that was just kind of down the line. And Funny Van's based on people I know, both in Buffalo and in the NASCAR side. And every driver's name is like Bobby Champ, Rusty Racer, Daredevil, Dale, Daredevil Jr. You figure that out, yeah. But it was all the people I know, and I just made a story out of it. And it sat for 6 years. And one morning I woke up at 4 o'clock. I go, I want to finish the book. And I got up at 4:30, and by 10 o'clock I said, well, that's done. Time to now find a publisher.
Wow.
That's what I did. Yeah. And Petey I wrote in 2.5 hours.
Really? The entire book?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
The entire book.
That's,
I mean, I had it in my head, but I just,
like some kind of an LSD fueled dream or something. You just spit it all out.
I couldn't sleep. I was having trouble sleeping. Yeah, no. So, yeah.
Yeah, the book was ready to come out.
The books have been fun. The book's been fun. It was nice. I don't think I have another one in me right now. It's just it doesn't fit. So yeah.
Well, that's interesting though, because again, now tell me about the Bobby Allison book, because I wasn't aware of that one.
Okay, so that was so I got to know the family because I was around and I kept running into him, and we just kept talking, and I realized he lived close by, and his daughter's like, we're trying to put this book together, and we want the book to be him, and Bobby's like, I don't want it to be about the sad stuff, I want it to be like the fun stuff, and he said that, and he goes, they want a CD of him telling the stories in there, and they want to be coffee table. I'm like, okay. So I got in touch with some people I knew, like, hey, can you record and make CDs on this? I go, yeah, okay. So we did that. And then they found a publisher. I said, oh, great, I can't wait to read it. And they said, read it? No, you're writing it. Huh? So, because I've written this many books up until then. So I just learned how to write a book, and that was a big learning experience. So Bobby and I went on tour, book signings, we flew places, drove places, all the stories he would tell, and just watching him and the public with him. I mean, it was like walking with Elvis at times, because it was just, people were just so drawn to him. People come up crying at the trailer we're at signing, and they were just so moved, to meet him. Real quick, funny story. We're in Bristol. People are lined up like 8 deep to get to us, and there's a long line. And people come up, so I remember you, da-da-da. And he goes, yeah, we had some pretty good times back in the day. And this one guy comes up, and he goes, hey, how much are your books? And Bobby doesn't blink an eye. He goes, 30 a piece or 3 for $100. I'll take 3. This is me, I go. And I turn, I look at Bobby. He looks back at me and kind of smirks, and I went, okay. And ever since then, it was 3 for $100. I'm not going to tell you how many times we did the 3 for $100, and nobody blinked or nobody even flinched at that at all. Like, it was just, he came up with it. I was just like, what'd you just say?
All right. And on that little bit of government math, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we got more with Tim Packman. Stay with us on the Tom Baker Show.
Attention track and series owners, elevate your fan experience with the TrackTune app. TrackTune works with your PA system. Fans and teams at the track can hear the announcers through their phones, ensuring everyone hears race calls, sponsor plugs, and more during race nights. It's simple to set up, affordable, and free for fans to download and enjoy. Visit tracktune.live for all the details and join tracks nationwide on the app today.
For race fans across the United States, GetInTheStands.com is the place to find racetracks where you live and where you're traveling. Just go to GetInTheStands.com and enter your location. You'll see the tracks within 100 miles of that point, either as a list or on a map. GetInTheStands.com is 100% free to use and mobile friendly. So whether you're on a computer, a tablet, or on your phone, there's no need to download an app. To find racetracks across the United States, open your web browser and head to GetInTheStands.com. GetInTheStands.com, your racetrack directory.
Welcome back to the Tom Baker Show. Tim Packman is our guest, and we've had a ball on this show so far. I want to pick up on the book thing because I want to know, and I'm sure our audience does too, if we want any of those books, where do we find them?
Well, currently I have a lot in my office here at the house. Basically, get in touch with me on Facebook, Tim Packman, and send me a message. And The only one I have left is P the Pace Car, the new one. Get in touch with me, and I'll personalize it and send it right to whoever you want, wherever you want. I'll it's a little bit extra because of shipping and everything, but yeah, get in touch with me via Facebook. That's the best way. Send me a message, or Tim Packman at yahoo.com, and I will make sure that you get a do the transaction. You get a book.
And he'll sell you one for 30 or three for 100, right? Got to follow on the Bobby Allison theme.
70 would be the Bobby theme. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So no copies of the Bobby book left.
No, they got wiped out. They did a reprint of some, and then they did a leather version. Those all sold. Like if you find one on eBay now, it's either probably used or
wow.
Because we don't have any left between us. We don't have any left at all.
Interesting. Well, if you want P the Pace Car, which is a really cool children's book, that's how you can get it. And I want to continue though, because you kind of migrated back into the sport a little bit as a announcer and then eventually working for a team. So catch us up on the rest of what you've done in the sport here.
Yeah. So when I came back here, COVID hit. So, all the teams are shutting down, laying people off left and right. And then Aaron Brown, a guy I worked with at DEI back in the day, he watched the podcast I started called Pub Table Racers, myself and Warren Brosell. So we did that for about 2 years. We had a blast. It was me, him, a bucket of Miller High Lifes in honor of Bobby, and we had all kinds of guests on. And then, they had a good time with it. But, it kind of ran its course, and everyone had a podcast like, well, people can't be guests and all this. Well, Aaron calls me, says, hey, I got this land speed thing we're doing on Bonneville. Come talk to me about it. So I came out and talked to him. Well, they're doing a whole production, YouTube show, channel, and then they were doing an 8-part docuseries on MAV TV. So I hosted that. And we did that, put that together and went on MAV. Very successful. And we went to Bonneville a couple times. We went to Blytheville, Arkansas. And we just did these land speed racing with a replica of Donnie Ellison's Torino, number 27, and Bobby Isaac's Dodge Daytona.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was really cool. That was amazing going out there. And the first time I went to Bonneville, that's sacred ground. And we drove. It was me and Aaron and two other trucks. So I got to see the countryside. And I want to tell you something. Texas is the world's longest state going east to west. Forever getting through Texas. But beautiful country anyhow. But we did that, and then we did our stuff there, and then I went to Rick Ware Racing. I knew they were looking for someone, so I had a talk with him, and I reached out. I said, "Hey, you still looking?" He said, "Matter of fact, yeah." So I went there, and then from there I went to another team, and that kind of ended quickly, and that was it right there.
So the Rick Ware piece, though, you were there with Rick before kind of the full merger, if you will, or collaboration with RFK. Talk a little bit about what it's like from the inside working for a team, because I think a lot of people in our audience don't realize what a communications director of a team actually does.
So Rick, when I went to work with Rick, they just started the RFK Alliance. They parted with Stuart Haas. So Rick has 2 Cup teams, NHRA Top Fuel team. He had an IMSA team, an LMP2 team that ran the 24 Hours of Daytona and some other races. He had 2 flat track motorcycle teams and 4 World Supercross teams. And so I kept busy, just kind of keeping people posted on what's up with that. But my main focus was on the Cup side and working with Clay Milliken, great guy, great guy. And, I have a Wally. He won his first race with them, and they gave us all Wallies, and I was very touched by that. And it sits a prominent place in my house. Working with Rick. Rick's a good guy, and he's a racer, true racer at heart. But I appreciate all he does. And people say, "How does he do it?" I said, "I don't know, but all I know is every 2 weeks, him and I were good, meaning, payday and that. But how he did it and where he got the money, I wasn't mind to ask him." I just know that he loves racing, and he gives it his all. He really is. He's an exceptional owner. He really is, for all he does.
Well, that team, since it's been paired with RFK, with the Technical Alliance, that relationship has just changed Rick Ware Racing completely, because now we've got Justin Haley running in the top 10, and even the 15 car, depending on the race and who's driving it, is faster than it was. And what Rick's accomplished, he did sort of a different way. He really, I feel like his
Sure.
motivation here for doing what he did the way he did it was to be able to take a sponsor and offer them multiple series for the price that most NASCAR teams would offer just the one car team, right? It was kind of that sort of thing. It was a buffet approach.
Yeah, so you take like Parts Plus. So you take Parts Plus mainly on the dragster, showed up on the Cup cars, on the
Okay.
and it was on the motorcycle teams and everything. So he was able to, use that, like say, hey, I'm just using a number. Hey, for 10 million, I can do this with that. And so these guys are like, wow, that's pretty good. You can spread it across all these different forms of motorsports in front of a lot of eyeballs.
Yeah. So it's really interesting. And you're seeing more teams doing that, getting involved in different sports. Trackhouse is multiple. Joe Gibbs had, some other things for a while. So you're seeing that happen more in the sport now than it did, which is really kind of fascinating. Okay. So, of all the things that you've done in the sport, what's been sort of the most favorite? I mean, what's been your favorite?
The broadcasting.
Okay.
Calling races.
MRN. Okay.
Yeah, because I did MRN. I also did it with Racing America, Flow Sports. So I just enjoy telling the story and conveying what's happening on the track and telling the story to the people at home with some excitement, a little bit of humor thrown in there. But that's kind of I really enjoy the broadcasting part of it. Now covering the sport.
You haven't said that you're done with any of that yet. Does that mean you've kind of left the door open for the right opportunities that you would dip back in?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure. I'm still in touch with a lot of people, but when my position was eliminated for financial reasons in March, everybody was filled up. Yeah. All the schedules were made. So I'm getting like, oh, so and so could make it. Let's call Tim. So, and that's fine. At least I'm on the forefront. So if I was to start working it in the fall towards next year, that's kind of what the angle I'm going to take.
I got you. Okay. Because I know that this most recent, as I mentioned in the previous segment, plot twist in your life has taken you into an acting role. So let's just get right to that. We'll with what time we have left here in this segment. How did that happen? Like, how did that start? Did you just wake up one day and say, okay, my childhood dream is to become an actor, so maybe I'll just go find a place to act?
No. So one part along the way there, I was doing stand-up comedy for a while. Just the local levels, open mic nights and stuff like that. And so a friend of mine, I had a lot of free time, and they were doing a show called The Hunting Wives for Stars Network in Charlotte. And she goes, hey, you got to look into this. So I looked at it and it said, send in 2 pictures and here's what we're doing, the scene we're doing, blah, blah. It's okay. So I sent in a couple pictures and 2 days later they sent me an email and go, hey, we'd like to book you. Really? So I was an extra. It's called background acting. So I was background on the show. There was a Texas barbecue scene that they were doing. And, so the principal actors were Dermot Mulrooney, Brittany Snow, and Malin, I can't remember her name at all. So I did that. One episode led to 5 of the 8, and then I got to know the production assistants and the casting people, and then it got to the point where the actors were like, oh, hey, how you doing? Like, hey, how are you? Because, they get to see you enough, and I did some feature roles where I'm working directly with the actors, but no speaking roles.
Okay.
So that's kind of the next step. Then that led to me going to Atlanta. I worked what's coming back? The Naked Gun is coming back, and starring Liam Neeson as Frank Drebin. So I did 4 days there. I was a ringside media person, and so there's right in front of you is Liam Neeson, working a scene, rehearsing. It's like, this is cool. And then there was a movie while I was there. I did it one day with Dennis Leary, and Ava Longoria is in it, but she wasn't there. But the scene I did, we're in a movie theater, and he gets in the way of people, and we get in a big fight with them, and out the door they go. So I'm sitting in between takes, it was me and Dennis and two other extras watching the NBA Finals, and they say, "Oh, don't talk to the actors," but it's like how you approach drivers. Hey, how you doing? Good. How are you? You're
Okay.
making comments about the game, blah blah blah, and that led to let's see, the Righteous Brothers. No, the Righteous Gemstones on HBO with John Goodman and Danny McBride did 4 days there, and then I just got back from Knoxville, working a crime reenactment show for another casting company. Oh, there was a movie in Buffalo. Everyone will like this one. It was called The Panic. It stars Cole Meany, and look it up, great Irish actor, and Carrie Elwes, who was Russ Wheeler in Days of Thunder.
Yes, Days of
So
Thunder.
when we had a little time
Yeah.
in between takes, I said, "Hey guys, I want to thank you for being really nice to me." Da da da. I said, I just came out of a 25-year in NASCAR, and Kerry leans forward. He looks at me. He goes, "NASCAR." I said, "Yes, Russ, NASCAR." And he goes, "Oh my God!" So we started talking. He started telling me about the movie and this, that. And he was a great guy, but it was, it's just something that's taken off, and I've kept busy, and I'm just kind of going with it right now.
Okay. Quick question before we end the segment. When you worked with
Sure.
Liam Neeson, is it true that in order to get a part one of his movies, you have to have a unique set of skills?
No, this was background, so I didn't really care.
Okay.
He's playing a comedy.
Gotcha.
He's playing Frank Drebin. I mean, goofball, yeah.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I didn't know anything about that part. I didn't actually act with him, so it was I just got to observe from 20 feet away, which is pretty good.
We'll step aside, be back with more with Tim Packman on the show right after this.
Attention track and series owners, elevate your fan experience with the TrackTune app. TrackTune works with your PA system. Fans and teams at the track can hear the announcers through their phones, ensuring everyone hears race calls, sponsor plugs, and more during race nights. It's simple to set up, affordable, and free for fans to download and enjoy. Visit tracktune.live for all the details and join Tracks nationwide on the app today.
Welcome back to the show. We've had a blast talking with Tim Packman about his career and his most recent adventures in the acting field. And Tim has not Tim has not closed the door on a return to motorsports work. So we'll see where the future takes him. But I want to finish up the acting with, okay, if you could play any part in any film with any actor or actress, pick one part that previously made. So let's say a remake. One part, one actor, actress, and what movie?
I want to work with John Belushi in Animal House and any comedic
Great
movie
choice.
with Will Ferrell.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's okay.
That'd be
Well, 1 out of 2. Not bad. Okay. All right. Let's get to some hot topics now, because I'm curious about your thoughts on some, because I know you keep up with everything. And
I still pay attention.
one of the biggest things that that has been announced, this to me was a bombshell. I was not expecting this, and it just came out this week. Corey LaJoie has announced he is not returning to Spire Motorsports in 2025. Now, this after they brought in Rodney Childers to step atop the pit box and crew chief, the number 7 that Corey is currently driving. Rodney's coming over for 25 to crew chief that car, and Corey is not going to be the driver. Are you surprised at this? And what are your thoughts about who his replacement could be?
So I was not surprised, because when they announced Rodney Childers was coming, which, by the way, great hire by them.
Yes.
Spire has a lot going on. A lot of people really don't know it. They made public, but they are building to be a very strong team in the future. Keep your eye on them. So
Yep.
When they announced he was coming over to be the crew chief for the number 7 car, they never put Corey LaJoie's name in there. The announcement, if you read it real carefully, it was Corey LaJoie. It was Rodney Childers coming to Spire, Ryan Sparks moving upstairs. So Ryan and Corey have been like this for years. Now Ryan goes upstairs, so to speak. Rodney comes in. They say, "Who do you want to work with?" Probably said not Corey, because great guy, love him to pieces. But as far as results driven, and the results haven't been there. So I was not surprised by this, because the initial announcement didn't connect the two. So I said, okay, I'm going to pay attention to this. And sure enough, it came to fruition that Corey was out of the ride.
That's interesting because I didn't pick up on that in the original announcement. I was surprised only because I thought that bringing Rodney in would have been sort of the okay, Corey, we've given you a championship winning crew chief here, and we're going to try to help you get to the next level. But it's interesting your point of view there. And so the question becomes, what do you think happens with Corey at this point, and who might you see as being a candidate for that number 7 car in 25?
So where Corey goes, I don't know. I can't really think about that. But the first name that comes to mind, there's a young driver named Riley Herbst who has not announced his future yet, right?
Okay.
Because the Stuart Haas thing is Cole's going back up the Cup, which he deserves.
Yep.
And so Riley Herbst comes with sponsorship. They just brought McDowell over there to Spire for next year. He brings possibly loves and more sponsorship. Riley has sponsorship with him. There's a Cup ride for him. So that would be my first pick. I read Justin Haley. Justin signed a multi with Rick Ware, and they're building around him. And he knew what he was getting into, so I don't see him abandoning the team already. No. But I do see Riley Herbst maybe a candidate to go in there.
What's interesting
is Connor Zilic. I'm like, he's not ready for that.
No, Connor's got a few steps yet. I can't see Connor Zilic going straight to Cup. He's not. That's not going to happen. But the Riley Herbst thing is interesting because he's been being mentioned as the insider for a third car with 2311, which is also interesting. Corey Heim is out there. Could Corey be in play for this kind of an opportunity? Sure. And of course, you've still got Zane Smith over there, and you've got McDowell. So could they move McDowell to the 7 and keep Zane where he's at? Could McDowell end up paired with Rodney Childers in this?
Could be, but I think Zane's only on loan from Trackhouse right now, so he goes to Trackhouse next year. So
perhaps. But what about what about SVG though? Because the rumor is SVG may go to Trackhouse. Do you think they end up with 4 cars?
I don't. They just got a new investor, so that raised the sports management company. So that'll be interesting how they figure that whole thing out. They got a lot of people up here doing stuff. You know what I mean? We'll see how that works, but you have to look at, Spire has a lot going on. They solidified themselves with the building. They're successful in the truck series. Michael McDowell, I don't think you put him with Rodney Childers because McDowell's kind of in, the third and fourth quarter of his career. If I'm Rodney, I want a young driver that I can build and mold under my knowledge and my winning ways and championship ways. So you take a Riley Herbst, for example, or a Corey Heim is a good one. You take one of those guys and say, okay, come with me. We're going to pair with a veteran. Let's make a go of it.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because I don't think too many people saw that coming. And that, like you said, Spire's reached a level now where that's a desirable opportunity for a driver. So if you were looking over somewhere else last week, all of a sudden now you're going, well, wait a minute, maybe I ought to go take a look at this before I sign anything. I think that's it's an interesting.
I'm sure they've reached out to a few guys already.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
I'm sure they've reached out to
that
guys already. So
Yep. So we'll see where that goes. Okay, NASCAR Indianapolis late race. Ryan Preece crashes, and again NASCAR. There was like 8 seconds where he was stopped. They wait until they get to the white flag to throw the caution. Right. What are your thoughts on this?
Consistency comes to mind. Any other race, any other time, not any. Most other times, most other races, you flag it. You say, oh, he's not moving yellow. Like he tried to get moving, but you could plainly see he was going nowhere. And, it's big enough track, so they, the ending happened. I'm like, what just happened there? And, of course, Ryan Blaney's mad as heck, as he should have been, because, Kozlowski pulls off. Larson comes up from third. Also, he's the lead car, and he's like, "Well, what just happened there?" So, was Larson going to win it anyhow? I don't know, but they should have done another restart. They should have flagged it and restarted it again.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
I think NASCAR blew it big time, and it's again, like you said, they're consistently inconsistent. I mean, Nashville, we had situations where like Austin Cindric comes to mind. He was never stopped, and the caution came out. Like it's really a crazy situation. It feels like this is almost race control by committee, with all of the different people now that are involved in this at different tracks and whatever. I'm not seeing the consistency. And Elton Sawyer just flat lied when he said that by the time they saw that he was stopped, the white flag was out. There was 8 seconds. We knew that when he was going through turn 4. The leaders were going through 4.
All the cameras they have, not the broadcast cameras, other cameras, all the spotters they have around the track, all the safety officials, hey, we got one stop here. I mean, come on, man, you didn't see it. This isn't a short track, guys, where there's like very limited things and few people. Yeah.
Yeah, he didn't help NASCAR's cause. And I'm going to tell you,
do better.
My take on it, they wanted the race over before NBC did their quick off to get to the news, and we had to get the post race on USA. That's my take on it.
Just flip it over to USA. Keep the race integrity. Who cares? Yeah. Flip it over there. Go to USA. People have it. Fine. That's just my theory. If you let TV dictate your outcomes,
Yeah, unfortunately, I think TV has too much influence now in the sport. But we move along. IndyCar. Okay, this is really funny. IndyCar, to me, this was comical. Arrow McLaren, of course, that they signed Theo Pourchaire, and then all of a sudden Nolan Siegel looked like a better candidate, so out went Theo, and in came Nolan Siegel. And then in the same 7-day period, Alex Rossi ends up with a thumb injury as a result of a crash. And who do they call to replace him? Theo Pourchaire. Come back, buddy. We were just kidding.
But he's a driver. What do you think he's going to get behind the wheel? Because every chance to race is a chance to be good. So I'll do it.
I mean, in between
nothing worse
that
than sitting
time,
home watching your fellow competitors.
Well, that's right. But of course, in between that time, Theo goes to a French media and basically just blows McLaren up. And that becomes a little back and forth. Then he walks back what he said and tries to accuse the media source of basically lying or embellishing or whatever. And then he ends up back in the car like 2 days later. He's at the racetrack driving it. It's just funny how things in the sport work. And that's how important it is not to burn a bridge, right?
Well, think twice, how important is this? Just let it ride out.
Okay, so just a little nugget from IndyCar. Let's close up with a great piece of news out of NHRA. John Force, released from the inpatient care facility. Still got a long road of cognitive therapy and such, but he is home, and that is great news.
So they said they're getting a back rehabilitation place closer to home. It's going to be a long road. His retirement's not official. Some BS site, said that it was a fake Brittany Force site. But I'd hate to see for his career to end this way after all he's done. But if it does end this way, so be it. He has nothing to be ashamed of. All the championships, all the fan love and everything, and he'll still be around. But that was a hell of a crash. When you're 75 years old, your body doesn't take it like when you're 65 and 55.
Sure.
He's very lucky to be alive.
Absolutely.
And any issues he has, I hope they can work through it. But I was very glad to hear that he is closer to home, rehabbing there.
Our prayers will continue for his complete recovery, and hopefully he will get to a point where he can decide on his own if he wants to get back in the car or not. Tim Packman, thanks for being on the show. We really appreciate it, and we'll look forward to having you back on again soon. And with that, we close.
Appreciate it. Enjoyed it very much, and thank you for the time.
Thank you, sir. And that brings us to a close here on the Tom Baker Show. For more exclusive content and stories, join us at steeringwheelnation.com or, of course, our 24/7 streaming page on the watchpowertubetv.com website. You can visit tracktune.live to check out how you can sign your Tracker Series up so that your fans and teams can hear all of the PA action right through their phone or device. Check out ultimateqm.com for information on how you can get your young ones started in quarter midget racing. Remember, winners win with Ultimate QM. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at The Wheel Nation, Steering Wheel Nation on LinkedIn, or follow me on LinkedIn at Tom Baker Media. Until next time, I'm Tom Baker. Thanks for watching.
Like this show? Want more? Then head to WatchPTTV.com, the new 100% free PowerTube TV streaming network. Home of the best classic and new motorsports racing and build shows on the web.